Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video we're going to be testing the Winchester Elite PDX-1 12 gauge Defender. So let's take a closer look at the ammunition here. Basically what we have is a 2 3/4 inch shell that is comprised of 3 plated double-aught buckshot that is followed by a 1 ounce rifled slug. Now the idea here is that that slug will stay straight and true. That way you can engage targets from close distance to longer range, and that buckshot will correct for any aim errors that you have at close distances. That way if you stress out, pull a shot, you'll still be able to hit your target. We're going to be testing this using some clear ballistics gelatin. We're going to be using that same shotgun that we've been using for the following tests. We have that long 22-inch barrel. We're going to be testing it from 3 yards at Sharpshooters Indoor Range in Lorton, Virginia. Ready?
Yep.
Okay guys, so let's take a look at the results. Now there's 2 things to keep in mind before we get started. Number 1, we're looking at this from the bottom of the block. And number 2, we had to fire 2 shells because our first one came in contact with that 308 test right there. So we're mainly going to be focusing on that second shell, but we'll refer back to that first one when we need to. So first, let's take a look at the dispersion of the shot. Now on the box for the PDX-1 Defender, it gives us a shot dispersion grid here. And it shows us that our slug's going to hit slightly left and that we're going to have a triangular dispersion. Now we didn't see that with either of the shells that we fired today. What we saw was the slug hitting dead center and then the 3 pellets mainly being high and left. So now let's talk about the results. The slugs came in. We had one hit on the left side of the block, creating a 0.5 inch permanent cavity from the 0 inch to the 5 inch mark. After that, it tapered down to about 0.4 inches in diameter, and that reached all the way to the end of the block. Now, this did penetrate into the second block that we had set up, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what I want to pull your attention to are the plated buckshot. Now, we had 6 of those hit the block, and none of them came in contact with the 308 test because we fired 2 shells, remember? And as we can tell, they all created about a 1/8 inch permanent cavity that tapered down throughout the entire length of the block to about 1/32 of an inch. So overall, not incredibly stellar performance, but what it does show us is that it would be able to reach out and strike those vital organs. And we'll take a look at some of those that we captured in that second block. All right, so here's that second block of ballistics gelatin. As you can tell, we had some interesting results. It seems that the wadding from one of the shells actually penetrated out to 23 inches, which is quite substantial. This area here is very hard when you poke it, so I think there might actually be a slug in there. I'll dig in there and see if I can find out. What we did have is a very uniform penetration for most of the BBs that we captured. All of them seem to have reached to 21 inches. So we've got 2 right here. We've got 1 right here popping out the side of the block. You can ignore these from previous tests, but this one's popping out. And then let me see if I can get you a better angle on it. But this BB here seems to have had a lot of energy when it came to rest at 21 inches. Now what you're seeing here is called bounce back. So that's when that projectile, or in this case the BB, penetrates all the way out to 22 inches in this case. And then the elasticity of that ballistics gelatin pulls it back, and then it bounces around and creates a nice little wound cavity there. So think about the depth here and think about what kind of damage we can see to vital organs when we have this 0.4 inch little diameter permanent cavity here created just by 1 BB. So it's a pretty interesting result. So let me see if I can pull these out and we can see if they deformed at all, and we'll talk about overall performance. So these are the projectiles that we were able to recover from the ballistics gelatin. I want to draw your attention to this flattened gray portion here, and that's caused by the sheer energy that's exerted on the BBs once they strike the ballistics gelatin. And that's why you see copper BBs today. The reason why they're plated is because lead is a very soft metal, and when lead buckshot hits soft tissue, it sometimes deforms, which can cause it to veer off course. I haven't ran into it as much of an issue, but what I have found is that these plated BBs do tend to fly a little bit straighter throughout the ballistics gelatin with less deviation. Now I also want to talk about this here. This was the area that I thought the slug might be in, but it's actually carpet-like material that is made up for the wadding. And if you can just think about the amount of energy that it takes to pull this through 23 inches of human tissue, we're talking about a lot of power there. Now overall, the PDX-1 did pretty good. It definitely isn't the best slug I've ever tested. I would argue that the duplex series of slugs were very good and should be considered, but overall it's a pretty good performance on part of Winchester here. If you guys are considering using it, definitely don't hesitate. Now let me know in the comments below what you guys think, what you plan on using, or what you use for home defense. And don't forget to subscribe. It's free and it really helps us out. Okay, guys, I'll see you next time.